I have a secret. I haven't tried to paint a miniature in 35 years.
But that is about to change. Hey everyone, my name is Tom and I welcome you to Escape Reality Hobbies. Yep, sad but true, 35 years, 1987. To put that in its proper perspective, President Reagan was in his third year of his second term. The Billboard's Top 100 Song of the Year, Walk Like an Egyptian by the Bangles. The Academy Awards Best Picture, Platoon by Oliver Stone. And hey, might as well throw this one in there too. My favorite video game that I bought that year, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Come to think of it, a lot of you guys probably weren't even born yet. So, after watching literally dozens of talented people out there and them showing their techniques for beginners on how to start painting miniatures, I'm finally going to give it a try. Obviously, this is not going to be a tutorial. I'm not ignorant enough or arrogant enough to think that I should be teaching you how to do something when I have no idea what I'm doing myself. That's kind of like one of these guys thinking they'll actually be president of the United States one day. Instead of a tutorial, let's call this a demonstration by a newbie painter who hopefully has recalled at least a couple things from all the videos he's watched. From most of the videos, there seems to be an agreement that there are basically 8 steps to get your miniature ready for tabletop gaming. You prep the figure, clean it, you prime it, you do the base coat, the wash, a first layer highlight, second layer highlight, mount it on a base and decorate the base, I guess you would call it, and then do a varnish coat over it to seal it. I think that's 8 steps I just said, but that's what I'm going to try, and I'll show you what I do for every step. Here are my first 2 recruits for my miniature painting journey. These are Bretonnian Bowmen that came out in the 1990s. They're by Citadel Miniatures Games Workshop. I actually found about a dozen of these in a garage sale a couple months ago, and I chose these for a couple reasons. One, they don't look like they would be too difficult, too daunting for a beginning painter. Granted, I might have just jinxed myself by saying that, but they don't look overly detailed, so that hopefully is promising. Plus, I have 2 Osprey games, Dragon Rampant and Lion Rampant, that I would like to learn, and I think that these bowmen, these medieval bowmen, would be perfect for them. So, let's get this party started.
Excellent!
Having built plastic models in the past, I don't think the cleaning of these plastic miniatures is going to be too foreign to me. Pretty much it's the same with any plastic part. You're going to remove them from the sprue using either sprue cutters or your standard hobby knife. Also, you're going to get rid of these little tags here. You're going to want to cut pretty close, but not right up against it, because then you could damage the part. Once it is released from the sprue here, I would assume that most plastic injection molded figures like this, miniatures, are going to have seam lines, which I do see, and unfortunately they're going all through their fingers and their knuckles, and even in Bill's face there's a seam line going right through his face, but hopefully I'll be able to get that cleaned up. Once they are removed from the sprue, again, either your straight edge hobby knife or your curved hobby knife to gently scrape away these seam lines, and it usually works pretty good. If you need any additional cleaning, you can use some sanding sticks. I'd say get a fine, get a medium. I even have these old Testors sanding pads, 150 grit to 600 grit, I've had for quite some years. And after that, hey, I'll use a toothbrush, I'll get rid of all the grit and everything else. So let me get these guys released from their plastic encasement. I'll get them mounted and we'll move on to the next step. Here are our bowmen, all cleaned up. Most of the molding seam lines I was able to remove, again, except for the places in the knuckles and the face, but overall I'm pretty happy with it. You can see I actually mounted them on a 1-inch 25mm metal washer. I actually prefer the round washers than these square 20mm bases that came in the box. I just like the looks of the round bases. I like how it has a low profile here, and it really seems that if you're ever playing with them and if you bump them, the metal washers are going to keep them from tipping over because of the weight. So let me go ahead and get these in a nice warm bath, cleaned up a little bit, and we'll be ready for priming. Here are the Bowmen after a coat of black primer. I used the Army Painter's Matte Black. I did 3 or 4 light coats, got them from all sorts of different angles, and it came out pretty good, pretty smooth. I don't see any grit or anything, so I'm very happy with that. I experimented with one more priming step. I know, pretty cool, right? This is called zenithal priming. Zenithal priming is when you're trying to mimic a natural light source or any light source. Generally, you'll spray it from above using a white, a light tan, or gray. In this case, I used Army Painter's flat white spray, did several coats to get a fine mist, and it came out pretty good. What's neat is if you show it from the very top like this, and as you turn it, you can see where the spray paint naturally is going to hit the higher areas and can't reach the areas that are in, well, shadow. From what I've read, it's supposed to make the colors more bold, more vivid, more of a contrast between light and dark. I don't think it's really necessary to accomplish what I want to do, but it is pretty darn awesome. If I take Ted here, turn him a little bit, you can see where all the black primer is, the first coat I did underneath. So yes, it's neat, it works. You know, maybe in the future when I get more advanced and try different techniques, I might use it. Don't think it's needed now, but it's neat to show you just what it looks like. Before we slap some paint on these guys, I have a confession. All these paints behind me, lots of paints, they're living a lie. No, it's not that bad. It is indeed true that I haven't tried to paint a miniature in earnest in 35 years, but these paints, they've just been window dressing for many, many years. You can see that I have Vallejo game color paints, I have Army Painter paints, I have Games Workshop paints, and I've got a lot of Vallejo model color paints. The Army Painter paints, the Vallejo game color, the Games Workshop, I've purchased those all within the last 1 to 3 years in hopes that I would start doing some miniature painting. The Vallejo model color paints, I've had those 12, 15, 20 years and have used maybe 5% of them. So, now that my secret is out, my lie has been exposed, we can proceed in peace. Just like the spray primers I used, I am going to go with the Army Painter range of paints that I have. After all, they were the very first paints that I picked up to attempt miniature painting. Now, am I going to use all these paints? I have no idea, but I have watched a couple videos, well, tons of videos from 2 of my favorite painters, Sonic Sledgehammer Studios out of New Zealand and Pete the Wargamer. I believe he's out of the United Kingdom. If he's not, I apologize, Pete. But they've given me a couple really good suggestions just by watching the videos of what type of paint palette I should have. I've tried to do 2, 3 shades of the same basic color because right now I am not comfortable trying to mix my own paints, blend any of that stuff. I'm a brand new painter. That would be ludicrous. So here's what I have. Now from this step forward, or this stage forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the end result of each stage. The base coats, the shading process, the first layer, the second layer, etc. I would not be comfortable trying to film me painting everything and making sure that this camera is focused on everything. I'd be more worried about that. And plus, even with the power of editing, this video would be 2 hours long. Don't want to do that. So, here we go. Start the engines. Let's get started. Alrighty, here are the end results for the base coats. I was going for a Andy Warhol kind of Pablo Picasso type look, and I think I nailed it. Alrighty, here's what Bill and Ted actually look like with the base coats done. I had to use 3 light coats. That was more my issue as a new painter. I thinned them too much, but Rather use a few thin coats than coats that were too thick. I'm fairly happy with the paint scheme. I like the blue scheme there. Let me turn them around and show the other side. Right now, they really have no shading, no highlight or anything, but hopefully the magic's going to start in the next step with the wash and then further on once we do the highlights. As far as the colors that I used, let me actually move them to the side so I can pop the colors up there. For the tunics and the coats, I used deep blue and wolf gray. For the shirt, that's called mummy robes. It's like a dark cream color, so therefore I can actually highlight it later with white. For the bow and the arrow shafts, it was fur brown and banshee brown. The helmets and other metal bits, including the buttons, belt buckles, etc., that's plate mail and gunmetal. And for the skinned, that is tanned flesh. And then all the other leather and cloth items, I just used various browns and grays and colors just to mix match and, get a variety of colors there. So far, so good. On to the next step. Here's what the miniatures look like after applying the wash. I used 3 parts dark tone to 2 parts quick shade mixing medium. I gotta admit, I've got mixed feelings. One happy thing I'm about, on the mid-tone to the dark tone colors, they look good. It goes in the recesses very nice, it does nice shadowing and everything else. But the things I don't like, I do not like the way the shirts came out. Very blotchy, very dark. The other thing I do not like is I don't like how shiny this is. This really looks like a gloss stain varnish. Granted, I must be fair. It's the first time using this product. I'll learn as time goes on. I probably should have done a 1-to-1 mixture. I'm hoping that the next step, the highlighting, I'll be able to fix the shirts and get rid of a lot of that grime and stuff, or possibly I need to paint the shirts over and reapply again in a lighter coat. We shall see, but I wanted to show you what I did, both the good, bad, and possibly ugly. So time to move on to the next step. Here's what the boys look like after the first highlight layer. For the first highlight layer, what I did was you're basically just taking the base coat, you're reapplying it, but this time over a smaller area. You're doing all the raised areas, the flat areas, and any areas that are in recess, you're letting them be because that's where the wash is settled to make the shadow. It still looks kind of grimy, still looks very shiny, but I am very hopeful that's going to go away once I put the matte varnish on. I did try to put some eyes on him. You probably can't see him, and that's just a lesson for me that they're probably not needed to try and put eyes in this scale. If I really wanted to see him, yeah, they probably end up looking like Marty Feldman eyes, so I don't think I'm going to put any eyes on there. Go look at Bill here real quick. Same thing with the layers. He only has one eyeball because this other one is closed. But we're going to go on to the next step, the second highlight layer, and then we will be done with painting. The second highlight layer, it's done, which means after a coat of spray matte varnish, the painting is done. For the second layer highlight, what I did was I took shades of the original base coats that were significantly lighter, applied them to ridges, tops of the folds, areas that I thought would get some type of light reflection. I have to admit, I'm very unhappy with the faces. I just struggled doing the first and the second highlight layers on those areas. After the third time of trying to get it right, I just kind of conceded and said, okay, maybe next time. So let's go get a coat of matte varnish put on these. Let's get the bases landscaped. I did pick up a few items from my local hobby store last week, and then I'll get to reveal to you what my first completed painted miniatures look like. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Bill and Ted. I like how the matte varnish seemed to tone down the colors just a little bit, and I also like how it kind of smoothed the transitions between the colors. Overall, yeah, I'm happy with my first effort here, and if I can paint like this for a tabletop gaming standard, I'd be okay with that. Were mistakes made? Oh, you betcha. But will I learn from them and improve in the future? I'm confident I will, because after all, making mistakes and practice are all part of learning. And like many wise people in history have said, Socrates, Confucius, Kermit the Frog, my wife, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and until next time, enjoy life, and as always, I hope that you all get to escape reality quite often. Take care, everyone.